Story 1. Growing back your own enamel instead of needing crowns or replacements. Story 2. Vaccines for herpes simplex virus and Lyme disease are in late-stage successful clinical trials and should be available to the public very soon. Story 3. They are hoping that a new drug will be available for use by 2030 that essentially grows teeth back. It stimulates stem cells in the dental pulp and encourages growth. To my knowledge, this drug was originally tested in Japan as an Alzheimer's treatment. Story 4. A potential cure for symptomatic rabies. Using monoclonal antibodies, scientists were able to significantly alter the immune response in the rat's central nervous system during infection. This is significant because previously, once symptoms appeared, the disease was almost always fatal. Rabies is more common in Asia and Africa, with roughly 56,000 cases per year. Story 5. The publication omitted an important element that should be addressed before we become overly optimistic. Earthquake warning system up to 2 hours. Permanent global positioning system antennas are installed worldwide and are more densely placed near fault zones. About a year ago, geologists found that if they stacked all historical global positioning system data near large earthquakes, they observed a very small acceleration of the surface about 2 hours before the earthquake. We currently lack the technology to make more precise global positioning system measurements in real time for individual regions. It has been demonstrated that this phenomenon occurs, and we could warn of earthquakes with a significant lead time. And the land movement is so subtle that only by lumping all the data together did the precursor stand out. Lettery says, if you just remove 1 or 2 earthquakes, you still see it. But if you remove half, it's hard to see. This is not yet a solution and has not saved lives, but it is a staggering discovery that will receive intense attention in the coming years. Story 6. Geothermal energy. People have figured out how to reuse the drilling technology developed for fracking to dig geothermal wells almost anywhere. Geothermal has the benefits of nuclear power, reliable baseload power without the downsides. The footprint is smaller, and unlike nuclear power, geothermal plants can be turned on and off quickly, which is important for filling gaps when the sun does not shine or the wind stops blowing. The United States government recently cleared most of the red tape for drilling geothermal wells on public land. It is now about as easy to drill a geothermal well as an oil well. Researchers are exploring using geothermal wells like batteries by pumping water into them and pressurizing the formation. When there is excess solar or wind electricity, it can be stored in the geothermal wells. Story 7. Messenger ribonucleic acid-based cancer treatment will, within a decade, render chemotherapy and radiation obsolete. Story 8. Curing addiction with a diet drug. Glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists. People with lifelong alcohol use disorder, substance use disorders, eating disorders, and gambling disorder have reported losing desire for these behaviors while taking Ozempic, Wegovy, or other semaglutide products. Researchers are already conducting studies. Story 9. Early diagnosis and treatment of Parkinson's disease. I have been following a story for several years about a woman who can detect Parkinson's disease by smell and is now working with researchers to develop an early screening test based on her unusual ability. Story 10. Insanely effective cancer treatments. Cell therapy is absolutely crazy, and it is available for a fair few diseases. Story 11. Many family members work in different pharmaceutical companies. We were recently discussing a very promising treatment for Alzheimer's disease that is in development and could stop the progression of the disease and might even reverse some brain damage. It is still in the testing phase and will not be on the market for years, but it would be wonderful to have available. Story 12. A cure for the human immunodeficiency virus seems to be on the horizon. Some scientists managed to cut it out of cells using clustered, regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats last year. Story 13. Treating depression with neuromodulation therapy instead of medications. Stanford is heavily involved in clinical trials using their Stanford Accelerated Intelligent Neuromodulation Therapy, called SAINT. It uses transcranial magnetic stimulation in a way similar to deep brain stimulation but is less invasive and better tolerated. I am trying to get into one of their clinical trials. I am looking forward to a day when I do not need medication to stop me from wanting to die. I am on my 7th or 8th antidepressant, and finding one that works without causing mania, loss of libido, or weight gain has been impossible. I am currently taking vilazodone, which is not too bad but probably not as effective as it should be. After years of not experiencing frisson, the chills or goosebumps that music can give, I am finally getting them again. My doctor thought this was unusual but very cool. My doctor is also very supportive of me pursuing that clinical trial. If you are in the placebo group, they will give you the real therapy after the trial ends. I applied through Stanford's Brain Stimulation Laboratory Clinical Trials page. You can also search the clinical trials. Gov Registry for Trials in the United States. This treatment is more targeted than older approaches and is hoped to last longer and be more effective than standard transcranial magnetic stimulation. Thank you to everyone who shared their transcranial magnetic stimulation experiences, both positive and negative. There have been many developments on the drug front as well. Taking daily medication is difficult. Many people with depression, bipolar disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and other mental and physical illnesses struggle to take medications as prescribed. Hopefully, non-medication treatments become the norm in the near future. Everyone deserves to feel normal. Many people offer unsolicited advice, asking, "Have you tried?" Most of us with chronic illnesses have tried many options for relief. Clinical trials and practical use of transcranial magnetic stimulation are promising. There are peer-reviewed studies and real-world evidence supporting this. I always look for studies and research before exploring a new option. Thank you to those who sent messages of concern. I am okay and not a danger to myself or others. I appreciate the concern. I will review replies and address other questions when I have time. To those who struggle with mental health or have a loved one who is struggling, much love and support. My father had bipolar I disorder, and I wish he had had more treatment options before he died by suicide. Story 14. This is primarily an engineering issue, but many scientists are working on red, green, and blue micro light-emitting diode displays. We can currently build fairly efficient blue and green micro light-emitting diodes using indium gallium nitride, but red devices are lacking. Red light-emitting diodes have been available for much longer than their blue counterparts, but we currently cannot make red devices small enough for a display with a high pixel density measured in pixels per inch. Many researchers and companies are pursuing several different approaches to produce red micro light-emitting diodes, and I believe we will see the first commercial applications, starting with smartwatches, smartphones, and augmented reality and virtual reality goggles within the next 5 years. Story 15. Targeted cures for neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and multiple sclerosis. I am currently doing my PhD on a new style of vaccine for Alzheimer's disease, and the advancements in the last few years are incredible. Immunotherapies really are the next major step alongside gene editing. Edit to clarify wording. As several replies have stated, cure is a strong word. There has been a big shift in recent years toward a more preventative approach in treatment research rather than reactive treatments. Unfortunately, with neurodegenerative diseases, by the time symptoms appear, it may be too late to effectively treat the condition, as is the case with Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. I will not comment much on multiple sclerosis as it is somewhat outside my field, though the general principles are similar for my research. Rather than curing the condition after it has manifested, we and other researchers hope to develop treatments that may not halt disease progression but work to prevent it from occurring in the first place. Sorry for any confusion. I hope this clarifies things. Story 16. I have heard we are really close to re-enameling teeth. That would be huge. My stupid genetics can go to hell. Story 17. I checked the top posts on hair loss treatments, and nothing was mentioned. I'm going to cry now. Story 18. Genetic editing. I think we will soon see news of experimental gene therapy treatments for cancer, diabetes, and perhaps Alzheimer's disease. Clustered, regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats and CRISPR-associated protein 9 are among the technologies involved. The next logical step would be designer babies. Story 19. Brain-computer interface. I worked on one 10 years ago. It barely worked, but you could see the potential. However, a few weeks ago, someone played a 6-hour Civilization 6 session using only their brain. Story 20. Understanding how hormones and mental illness are linked, especially in women who were previously diagnosed with mental illness and who also had endocrine disorders. Menopause is an important factor. In response to the Lancet's claim of over-medicalization, researchers worldwide have intensified efforts to learn more. Story 21. Semaglutide, sold under the brand names Ozempic and Wegovy, is available in tablet form at a greatly reduced price. Wegovy has also been shown to reduce cardiovascular risk and to lower the chance of recurrent cardiac events in patients with a history of cardiac events. Some independent pharmacies are already compounding semaglutide into tablets. Story 22. Large-scale water desalination. Access to fresh water and water purification are among the planet's greatest challenges. Desalination has been very expensive for years and has not attracted the investment needed to achieve scalable solutions. Researchers and companies in the Middle East report major advances using graphene and abundant energy. New plants using these technologies are expected to come online next year. Reliable access to clean water would enable large gains in agriculture, industrial development, and population well-being. Story 23. With the James Webb Space Telescope, we are learning far more about our universe than the Hubble Space Telescope's visible light observations could capture. The universe differs from our previous expectations in profound ways. These discoveries will matter. I expect many more cancer vaccines to be developed. If cancer incidence is reduced, the need for therapies will also decrease. Story 24. A technological leap in battery storage capacity, making batteries cheaper and lighter, will have the greatest impact on everyday life. Story 25. In just 3 years, I went from learning about cystic fibrosis in medical school to seeing its treatment in residency. People now live legitimately normal lives with a disease that only a few years ago had an average life expectancy in their 20s. This brings tears to my eyes and gives me hope for what medicine can achieve. Story 26. Susan Shore's Oracle device can treat tinnitus, reducing perceived volume by up to 75% after 12 weeks of treatment, and is approved by the Food and Drug Administration. Story 27. A nuclear fusion reaction that sets a new record for duration or temperature. Story 28. What a great thread. Thanks so much for asking this original poster. Story 29. People who were previously paralyzed may be able to walk normally again. A few years ago, Israeli researchers grew human spinal tissue in mice. They then used that tissue to enable some paralyzed mice to walk again. Another advantage is that because the spinal tissue was grown naturally, patients may not need anti-rejection medications. Story 30. We will not be able to trust any digital images, videos, or audio we see. Politics will ignite a dumpster fire, along with countless other scandals, damaged relationships, and widespread disruption. Get ready. Story 31. Believe it or not, researchers are communicating with animals by translating their brainwaves into human language. Artificial intelligence research is on the verge of making this possible. Story 32. To-go containers for French fries that will keep them both hot and crispy. Story 33. The breakthrough came from cleaning the oceans of garbage. Now it needs to be more than a ship or two. Story 34. Digital dentures custom-built for each customer and produced in volume at a fraction of the cost using three-dimensional printers. Story 35. I think people are underestimating the impact these weight loss drugs will have. Once they become generic in about 10 years, they will change our entire medical system. Many people will no longer suffer all of the effects of obesity. Rates for obesity-related heart disease, various cancers, diabetes, and so on should plummet dramatically. This will have an enormous economic and demand impact on the medical system. These drugs may also be effective in treating addiction. Studies are already underway. Story 36. A few days ago, quantum data was stored and transmitted for the first time, which is very exciting. Story 37. I have seen increasing numbers of blood tests under development to diagnose diseases that typically require a biopsy to confirm. It would have been great not to need a craniotomy in the middle of a pandemic. Story 38. An antidote that immediately reverses the effects of marijuana intoxication. It works similarly to naloxone, which reverses opioid intoxication. The antidote has been developed and is currently in clinical trials. Story 39. A cure or reversal for Alzheimer's disease. A 60-minute special about the work a hospital system is doing recently implied that we are about 4 years away. Story 40. There will never be a single cancer cure. However, we will likely see the first successful comprehensive cures for several different types of cancer within the next 20 years. It is very close. The leading push in messenger RNA vaccines makes me optimistic. The idea is that each vaccine will be tailored specifically to each patient. At the basic level, researchers remove immune cells that already kill cancer, T lymphocytes, modify them to recognize a protein specific to a patient's tumor, and then return them so the patient's own immune system can attack the cancer. T lymphocytes kill cancer cells continuously. Estimates suggest the body eliminates a cancer cell every 5 minutes. Cancer becomes dangerous when malignant cells evade the immune system and hide from T lymphocytes, allowing tumors to grow and spread. Immunotherapy aims to direct the immune system to the cancer by training T lymphocytes to recognize tumor-specific proteins and then returning those trained cells to the patient to seek and destroy the cancer cells. This is my understanding. Story 41. Artificial wombs already exist. Biobag wombs have been used on premature sheep and pigs. They will soon enter human trials for premature babies in the United States. Researchers will probably be able to support a fetus at increasingly earlier stages of gestation. Story 42. Solid-state batteries should be a technical knockout against combustion engines once charge time and manufacturing capabilities are unlocked. Story 43. I do not know, but it is not curing diabetes. 20 years ago, people said it would be cured in 10 years. Story 44. Artificial intelligence in medicine and surgery is already in use. It is only a matter of time before healthcare is dominated by it. Story 45. Artificial intelligence is only a few years away from being able to write programs that create better artificial intelligence, which in turn will produce even better systems. Is this good or bad? Who knows? Either way, we are not prepared for what comes next. When artificial intelligence becomes better at decision-making and planning than humans, what then? This is no longer an if, but a when. It will either usher in a new age of humanity, in which technology develops so fast we achieve things previously thought impossible, or it will usher in the last age of humanity. This is not a distant, unknowable future. You will probably still own the shirt you are wearing now. Story 46. A cure for prion disease. Or at least a treatment combined with a method of detection before it becomes terminal. Every advancement that lets us study the very small brings that goal closer. Add artificial intelligence. I predict a cure or a detection and treatment method within 10 years. I pulled that estimate out of my arse. Feel free to agree or disagree. Bonus. If we do not die from variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, it gives us more time to spend with our romantic robot companions. Story 47. Functional immortality is reversing the damaging effects of aging and maintaining a level of health comparable to a 25-year-old for as long as one can avoid accidental death or violence. Story 48. Artificial wombs. To say that this is going to be highly politicized and change the way our world looks at life is probably an understatement. Story 49. Psychedelics are being explored as a treatment for mental illness. We will improve our ability to help people rather than simply offering medications and hoping for the best. Story 50. Grab like, subsequent, knee north, fanatical, dear, chop, slimy, wise. Story 51. I hope there is a cure for cancer. My son died from it recently. Story 52. Not a single comment or answer about women's menstrual cycles. We suffer so much from polycystic ovary syndrome, endometriosis, and other undiagnosed issues. It is very disillusioning. Story 53. Finding out why frankfurters and buns are packaged in different quantities. Story 54. Fusion. 50 years ago they said it would take 50 years, so any day now. Story 55. Adjustable height kitchen sinks with an additional shower-type nozzle for washing pots and pans. Story 56. Ambient pressure, room temperature superconductors. We are right at their front door. We just fumbled the key in the bushes. They will change everything and vastly accelerate breakthroughs in electronics. Story 57. A definitive decision about handling the environmental crisis. It is not necessarily a solution, but a consensus on how it will be implemented. Story 58. Battery technology. We have been closely following the latest breakthroughs for the past 20 years. Story 59. The forever young drug. Scientists have successfully reversed aging in mice and slowed it up to 500-fold. If this can be done in humans, we could live about 40,000 years before dying of old age. Story 60. In vitro gametogenesis will allow us to create a sperm or an egg from any cell. The implications are enormous and ethically complex, but the technology also has the potential to do a great deal of good. Story 61. Cloned mastodons have been 5 years away for 30 years. Story 62. Soon nuclear-generated electricity will be so cheap that we will not send the invoice. Oh wait, that was in the 1950s. Story 63. We could be within 5 years of making wheelchairs and mobility scooters obsolete. I recently had a spinal cord stimulator implanted to treat back pain in my cervical and lumbar regions, where I have damaged and replaced vertebrae. The technician told me they are successfully testing an implant that can bypass severed or damaged spinal cord nerves and reconnect the nerves above the injury. Imagine the possibilities for accident and warfare victims who might be able to walk or move their arms again. Staggering. Story 64. The National Ignition Facility at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory achieved break-even controlled fusion in late 2022. That is an enormous milestone. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.